Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. Alice was very bored sitting by her sister on the riverbank. She wished something exciting would happen. Her sister was reading a book, but it didn't have pictures or conversations. What's the use of a book without pictures or conversations? She thought. Just as she was about to make a daisy chain, a white rabbit with pink eyes dashed by. He was wearing a waistcoat and pulling out a pocket watch. A rabbit with a pocket watch was too curious to ignore. Alice jumped up and followed him. The rabbit darted into a hole under a hedge, and Alice crawled in after him. Suddenly, she was falling. Down, down she tumbled, passing shelves with jars and maps. Dinah will miss me very much tonight, she thought about her cat. At last, Alice landed on a pile of dry leaves. Unhurt, she got up and saw the white rabbit hurrying down a hallway. "Oh, my whiskers, I'm late!" he cried. Alice ran after him, but stopped when she reached a strange hall with many locked doors. On a glass table, she found a tiny golden key that opened a small door, leading to a beautiful garden, but the door was too tiny for her to fit. Then Alice noticed a bottle labeled "Drink Me." After checking it wasn't poison, she drank it and shrank to the perfect size. But the key was still on the table, now out of reach. Frustrated, she noticed a cake labeled "Eat Me" and took a bite. "Curiouser and curiouser!" cried Alice as she grew taller and taller. Her arms stretched long, and her feet seemed so far away that she joked, "I'll have to send my feet presents for Christmas." But when her head bumped into the ceiling, the joke wasn't funny anymore. She felt both amazed and a little frightened. Grabbing the tiny golden key, Alice tried the garden door again, but she was much too big to fit. Frustrated, she began to cry, her tears forming a salty pool that spread across the hall. "Stop crying, Alice!" she scolded herself, but the tears kept falling. Just then, the white rabbit rushed past again, dressed in a fancy coat and gloves, muttering, "Oh, the Duchess will be so angry!" Alice tried to ask for help, but the rabbit panicked, dropped his gloves and fan, and ran off. Picking up the fan, Alice waved it without thinking. To her surprise, she began to shrink. Soon, she was so tiny that she slipped into the pool of salty tears. "Oh no, I might drown in my own tears," she gasped. As she swam, she spotted a mouse paddling nearby. "Excuse me, Mouse, how do we get out of here?" she asked politely. The mouse looked startled, especially when Alice mentioned her cat, Dinah. Gradually, other creatures, like birds, a duck, and a dodo, joined them in the pool. Together, they swam toward the shore, hoping to dry off and make sense of this curious place. Dripping wet and shivering, Alice and the creatures huddled together on the shore, grumbling about being so soggy. "We can't stay like this forever," Alice said, her teeth chattering. The mouse cleared its throat. "I have the driest idea. Listen to me." The creatures sat in a circle as the mouse began a long, dull story about William the Conqueror. He claimed it would dry them off, but no one felt any drier. "This isn't working," declared the dodo, puffing out its chest. "Let's have a race to get dry, a caucus race." "What's a caucus race?" asked Alice. "The best way to explain is to do it," said the dodo, drawing a rough circle in the sand. Then everyone began running whenever they liked and stopping whenever they pleased. After much confusion and laughter, the dodo finally shouted, "The race is over! Everyone wins!" The creatures cheered and asked for prizes. Alice, unsure what to do, reached into her pocket and handed out candles. When she ran out, The dodo found her thimble and presented it back to her as her prize. Hoping to feel closer to her own world, Alice mentioned her cat, Dinah. Hearing this, the birds flew away in a panic, and the mouse began explaining why cats and dogs frightened him. "They chase creatures like me," he said, his eyes filling with tears. But Alice, distracted by its long, curled tail, wasn't listening. Offended, the mouse stormed off, leaving her puzzled and alone. Poor Alice sighed, wishing for better company. Alice wandered through the woods, feeling lonelier than ever. Suddenly, she spotted White Rabbit again, nervously muttering, "Oh dear, the Duchess will be furious if I don't find my gloves and fan." When the rabbit noticed Alice, he cried, "Mary Ann, what are you doing here? Run home and fetch my gloves and fan right away." Startled, Alice didn't have time to explain that she wasn't Mary Ann. She hurried off in the direction he pointed. Soon she found a neat little house with a brass nameplate, reading W. Rabbit. "This must be it," Alice thought, and went inside. Upstairs, she found the gloves and fan, but then she noticed a small bottle on a table. "I wonder what this does," she said, taking a sip. Alice began to grow and grow until her head touched the ceiling. Her arms and legs stuck out of the windows and chimney. "What will the rabbit think?" she worried. Outside, the rabbit and his friends panicked. They sent a little lizard named Bill down the chimney to investigate. But Alice gave a quick kick, sending Bill flying through the air. "Let's burn the house down!" shouted the rabbit. "If you do, I'll set Dinah on you!" Alice yelled back, scaring them into silence. Just then, pebbles thrown through the window turned into little cakes. Alice ate one and quickly shrank back to her tiny size. She darted out of the house and back into the woods, relieved to be free. While wandering through the woods, Alice marveled at the strange and wonderful things around her. Soon, she came across a large blue caterpillar sitting on a mushroom. It looked at her lazily and asked, "Who are you?" Alice hesitated, unsure of how to answer. I don't really know right now. I've changed so many times today." "What do you mean?" asked the caterpillar sternly, narrowing his eyes. "Well," said Alice, "being so many different sizes in one day is very confusing. 1 minute I'm too big, and the next I'm too small." The caterpillar frowned. "It's not confusing at all. What size do you want to be?" Alice thought for a moment. "I'd like to be a little taller," she said. 3 inches is just too short." 3 inches is a very fine height," the caterpillar replied proudly, because he was exactly 3 inches tall. Alice bit her lip to keep from laughing. The caterpillar, now annoyed, said, "One side of the mushroom will make you taller, and the other will make you shorter." "One side of what?" Alice asked, puzzled. "The mushroom," said the caterpillar before crawling away. Alice, unsure which side was which, broke off 2 pieces. Nibbling one, she shrank so quickly her chin hit her foot. Panicked, she tried the other piece and grew so tall she couldn't see her feet. After some experimenting, Alice returned to her normal size, tucked the mushroom pieces away for later, just in case, and resumed her journey through Wonderland. Alice found herself outside a strange house. As she wondered what to do, a fish footman arrived with a letter from the Queen for the Duchess. Alice knocked on the door, but a frog footman nearby said, "Knocking won't help with all the noise inside." Curious, Alice opened the door and stepped in. The kitchen was a mess. The cook was making soup with so much pepper that everyone was sneezing. The Duchess sat, rocking a crying baby, while pots and pans flew through the air. Only the cook and a big grinning cat by the fire seemed calm. "Why does your cat grin like that?" Alice asked. "It's a Cheshire cat," said the Duchess. "That's why." Without warning, the Duchess tossed the baby into Alice's arms. "Here, you take it. I must get ready for croquet with the Queen," she said, rushing out. Alice tried to calm the baby, but gasped as it began turning into a pig. "If you're going to be a pig, I can't carry you," she said, setting it down. The pig snorted and ran into the woods. Alice sighed and looked up to see the Cheshire cat sitting in a tree, still grinning. "Which way should I go?" she asked. "That depends on where you want to go," the cat replied. "I don't really know, but I don't want to go among mad people," Alice admitted. "Then it doesn't matter. We're all mad here," said the cat before disappearing, leaving only its grin behind. Smiling at the strangeness, Alice headed towards the March Hare's house. Alice came across a long table set under a tree. The Mad Hatter and the March Hare were having tea, using a sleepy dormouse as a cushion. "No room! No room!" they cried when they saw Alice. "There's plenty of room," Alice replied, sitting at the end of the table. "Have some juice," said the March Hare. Alice looked around. "I don't see any juice." "There isn't any," the March Hare admitted. Alice frowned. "Then it wasn't very polite to offer it." The Mad Hatter suddenly pointed at her. "Your hair needs cutting," he said. "That's rude," Alice said firmly. "You shouldn't make personal remarks." The Hatter ignored her and asked, "Why is a raven like a writing desk?" Alice thought hard, but couldn't guess. "I don't know. What's the answer?" "We don't know either," said the Hatter and March Hare, laughing. The conversation grew stranger. The Hatter explained how he had quarreled with time, so now it was always 6 o'clock. Tea time. The group kept moving around the table to avoid washing the piles of dirty dishes. The Dormouse woke briefly and told a strange story about 3 sisters living in a treacle well. "What's a treacle well?" Alice asked, though the answer didn't make much sense. Finally, when the others tried stuffing the Dormouse into a teapot, Alice stood up. "This is the silliest tea party I've ever been to," she said and walked away, shaking her head at their nonsense. After leaving the tea party, Alice entered a beautiful garden. Near the entrance, she saw 3 gardeners shaped like playing cards, nervously painting white roses red. "Why are you painting the roses?" Alice asked. "One of us planted the wrong tree," whispered a gardener. "If the Queen finds out, we'll be in trouble." Just then, someone shouted, "The Queen! The Queen!" The gardeners flopped face down on the ground. Alice turned to see a grand procession led by the Queen of Hearts and her king, followed by courtiers and soldiers, all shaped like playing cards. The Queen spotted Alice. "Who is this?" she demanded. "My name is Alice," she replied politely. "Can you play croquet?" the Queen asked. "Yes," said Alice, and the Queen shouted, "Come on then." The croquet game was unlike anything Alice had ever seen before. The balls were live hedgehogs, the mallets were flamingos, and the arches were soldiers bent over. Alice's flamingo twisted its neck to look at her, and the hedgehogs rolled away before she could hit them. As the game grew more chaotic, the Queen stomped around, shouting, "Take them away!" Alice was relieved when the Cheshire Cat's head appeared in a tree. "How are you?" the cat asked, grinning. Before Alice could answer, The queen demanded the cat be removed. "Take him away!" she cried. "But he's high up in the tree," argued the queen's guard. Before anything could happen, the cat vanished, leaving only its grin behind. Alice thought it was the strangest game ever. Alice was startled when the Duchess appeared and cheerfully linked arms with her. "Ah, my dear, there's a moral in everything," she said, leaning in. The Duchess rambled about pepper and chamomile, but her sharp chin pressing into Alice's shoulder was very distracting. Before Alice could reply, the Queen reappeared in the distance, scowling like a thunderstorm. "Take her away!" she barked. The Duchess fled so quickly that Alice barely had time to blink. Moments later, the Queen marched up to Alice. "Have you seen the mock turtle?" the Queen demanded. "No," Alice replied, confused. "What's a mock turtle?" "You'll find out. Griffon, take her!" The Queen marched off, leaving Alice with a lion-eagle creature. "Come on," said the Griffon, chuckling. "She never really punishes anyone, you know." They soon reached Mock Turtle, sitting on a rock, sighing deeply. "What's the matter?" Alice asked kindly. "It's nothing," the Griffin whispered. "He just likes to pretend he's sad." Mock Turtle began his tale. "Once, I was a real turtle. At school, we learned reeling, writhing, and uglification." "What's uglification?" Alice asked kindly. "Making things uglier, of course," huffed the Griffon. Then they spoke of games. "Do you know the lobster quadrille?" Mock Turtle asked. The Griffin eagerly dragged Alice into a silly dance, pretending to toss invisible lobsters into the sea. Finally, the Mock Turtle sang the sad song, "Beautiful Soup." Before Alice could applaud, a shout rang out. "The trial is starting!" "Come on!" cried the Griffin, pulling Alice away as Mock Turtle sang faintly, "Beautiful, beautiful soup." The trial was underway. The King of Hearts, acting as the judge, looked rather silly in his oversized wig and crown. The Knave of Hearts stood accused of stealing the Queen's tarts, which sat untouched on a table. Every few minutes, the Queen shouted, "Take them away!" while the jury scribbled nonsense on their slates. Alice, now much taller, watched the trial with growing amusement. When the king presented a meaningless poem as evidence, she laughed. "This doesn't prove anything," Alice said boldly. The Queen turned crimson with anger and screamed, "Take them away!" But Alice wasn't afraid. "You're nothing but a pack of cards," she declared. Hearing this, the cards flew into the air and swirled around her like a tornado. Alice gave a little scream and tried to bat them away, but suddenly she was lying on a grassy riverbank with her head in her sister's lap. Her sister's gentle voice called, "Wake up, Alice, dear." Alice opened her eyes to see sunlight sparkling on the water. Everything was calm again. "Oh, I've had the most curious dream," she said, recounting her adventures in Wonderland. Alice's sister smiled, and when Alice finished, kissed her on the forehead. "What a wonderful dream, Alice. Now run inside. It's time for tea." As Alice skipped away, her sister stayed behind, imagining the magical creatures Alice had described. Though it was only a dream, she couldn't help but wish to visit Wonderland herself. And so, Alice's adventures became a cherished memory, filling her heart with wonder forever.